This little thing is just as loud as this. Like, what wizards are working at Tribit? Like, they call it the StormBox Pro. I mean, it's a fair call because I feel like it is taking YouTube by storm. That's right, I said it. What are you gonna do? What you gonna do? Don't click off though, keep watching. All right, look, you've probably heard about this speaker before. There's tons of reviews on it already, so I'm gonna come in at a little bit of a different angle today and mainly talk about the sound, and I'm gonna be comparing it to a whole heap of speakers that I honestly didn't think I would be comparing this speaker to. So in today's video, I'm gonna be running through a whole heap of sound tests, both indoor and outdoor, and it's pretty interesting to see the differences when we're moving indoor and we're moving outdoor, because it's a portable speaker. You're probably going to be using it in different environments. Now, Tribit did reach out to me. They chucked the speaker over to me, but don't worry, you're going to be getting my honest, picky opinion as usual. Now, if you want to grab the StormBox Pro or any other speakers mentioned today, links are down below as well as timestamps, because as usual here, we're going in depth. So if you're picky with your audio, so am I. Let's get into another picky review. All right, let's just quickly pump through all the features and all the specs here. So build quality, top notch. It looks pretty basic. It gets the job done. You got a cheeky handle on there, convenient. Physical buttons on the top, they light up. You can control everything, including volume, skipping tracks forward and back, play, pause, voice assistant, and you can use this for phone calls as well with a built-in microphone. It's not the best, but it's kind of convenient to have it there. And this is what it sounds like about 1 meter away from the speaker. And this is what it sounds like with my mouth right up against it. USB-C to charge and a USB-A out to charge up some devices with 10,000 milliamps of battery juice. And with that battery, you're getting 24 hours at maybe 50% volume. I'm not too sure, but you're going to be getting 6 hours at 100% volume. And at 100% volume, this speaker is it shouldn't be this loud, honestly. You got an IP67 rating, 6 for dustproof, 7 for waterproof, so you can submerge the speaker in water for some underwater listening. You're getting Bluetooth 5.0 with aptX, which is pretty rare in the speaker world. They mainly just use SBC for some reason. So this does mean you get barely any latency when watching YouTube or Netflix. Tested on my MacBook and my iPhone 12 Pro. And you're also getting multi-point connection, so you can connect 2 devices to the speaker at the same time. And in my testing, you just gotta pause on one device, play on the next one, and it works pretty well. And if you want to connect 2 of these speakers together, you can do that as well. I mean, it's no party boost on JBL where you can connect 100, but 2 is better than 1. And you also get an auto power off. I think it's after 5 or 10 seconds when you don't have any music playing. All right, I'm pretty sure that's everything. And look, that is a decent amount of features for only $99 US, or $119 normally, but it normally goes on sale. I think it's $149 for my Aussies out there. All right, let's move on though, talking about the most important part, and that's of course sound quality. And I originally was only going to compare this to the Flip 5 because they're very similar in price and similar in size as well. But I also want to compare it to the JBL Charge 4 because since the Charge 5 came out, you can get the Charge 4 a bit cheaper. It's probably $20, $30 more than the StormBox Pro. But as the testing went on, I had to get bigger and bigger speakers. So I grabbed my 60-watt Tronsmart Mega Pro. And I also had to compare it to the JBL Xtreme 2 because the StormBox Pro here is just so loud for its itty bitty size. I still don't really understand, but it's not just the volume. It actually still sounds really decent. Now let's start with what the StormBox Pro is packing in terms of speakers and wattage. So you're getting 40 watts of power, and that's coming from 2 speakers on the left and the right. That'll pump out your mid frequencies and your high frequencies. You got 2 passive radiators on the front and the back that pushes out bass, and you're also getting a 3-inch down firing sub at the bottom of the speaker to pump out some more bass. So when you have a setup like this is generally what they'll mean by 360-degree sound. Technically, if the speaker is kind of facing towards you, most of the actual sound will come out the left and right and not really face you, but it kind of works well if you might have the speaker in the center of a room, then you have sound going to one side and then sound going to the other side, kind of providing sort of a 360-degree sound. So this is why with a speaker like this, where you position it can have a pretty big impact on the sound quality. So for example, if you chuck it in the corner of a room, that'll kind of push some bass into the corner, it'll bounce off the wall. And this is the same with the left and the right speakers, pushing out the mids and the highs. that'll also bounce off the wall and create a little bit more of a direct sound. It does sound a little bit better in the corner of a room. And this is the same with most speakers, like chuck it in the corner of a room and you'll generally get at least a little bit more bass pushed out. All right, now let's get into the comparisons. And to make it simple, I'm just going to compare one speaker at a time at different volumes, indoor and outdoor. And keep in mind, this is going to be with the extra bass feature turned on the StormBox Pro. That's just a physical button on the top of the speaker. I feel like you might as well just have that on all the time. And the pro is when you have that turned on once and you turn the speaker off and turn it back on, that'll automatically stay switched on. So starting with the smallest out of the bunch and similarly priced, JBL Flip 5. Because when it comes to overall specs, the StormBox Pro trumps the Flip 5 because you get double the battery, double the watts, Bluetooth 5.0 compared to 4.2, and you get aptX on the StormBox and only SBC on the Flip. There's no dust rating on the Flip 5. You can't use the Flip as a speakerphone or for voice assistant, and you don't get multi-point connection on the Flip. The Flip is a little bit more compact though, has JBL Party Boost so you can connect 100 speakers compared to 2, has auto power off, and you can get them in pretty much any color imaginable, where the StormBox Pro comes in like the black gray dull look, but look, looks are one thing. What's more important is the sound. Because when you have these indoor, with the StormBox Pro at 50% volume, this is equivalent to the Flip 5 at around 65%. And at this volume, they do sound very similar. The Flip might even actually have a little bit more bass at this volume. And since the speakers are on the front, this is going to kind of create a little bit more of a direct sound, providing a little bit better clarity as well. So it's really close, but I feel like I just overall prefer the Flip at this lower volume. There's just a little bit more bass and the treble is a little bit nicer, which provides better clarity. And this is just kind of a trade-off with that 360-degree sound. Since the speakers are facing left and right, they're not going to face directly towards you. You don't get as clear and as direct of a sound. Now with the Flip at 100% volume, this is equivalent to the StormBox Pro at about 80% volume. And still overall, I kind of like the sound of the Flip. The treble is a little bit nicer, it's a little bit cleaner. Instrument separation is also just slightly better, but now you can definitely notice that extra bass coming from the StormBox. And then of course, chuck the StormBox to 100%. And you got about another 4 notches of volume there. So it's going to be way louder. But when you venture above 80% on the StormBox Pro, the digital signal processing is not really adding any extra bass. It's just increasing the treble and the mids. So it sounds a bit lacking at 100% in terms of bass, but I guess the trade-off there is you can just have it at 80%. You still get a decent amount of bass. If you just want to like really crank it in a noisy environment, then you have the option there as well. And you barely get any distortion when you're venturing at 100% volume on most tracks as well. But I'll chuck up my indoor test here, comparing the two. Keep in mind, I don't have the best microphones here, but you should get a pretty rough idea of the differences.
Now, just keep in mind with the indoor tests, the microphone didn't really pick up the bass at high volumes on the StormBox Pro, but you can notice the volume and the bass with the outdoor tests.
Now with the outdoor test at all volumes, it's pretty much the same. You still notice that the flip does have more of a direct sound, but this is where the bass on the StormBox is a lot more noticeable, especially at those high volumes. But look, overall, considering the flip has half the amount of power, it's a bit smaller, it still holds up really well. So I'll chuck up some quick tests here so you can hear the differences there. All right, to kind of wrap up both of those speakers there, overall, the better value is coming from the StormBox Pro. The main reason you'll want to grab the flip is if you already have some JBL speakers that also have the party boost function. It is a bit more compact and there are a lot more color options if that's what you're into. Apart from that, the StormBox is better value for your money. Now onto the Charge 4, since that is pretty close in price, only a little bit more expensive than the StormBox Pro. And overall, the differences are quite similar to the flip. So with the StormBox at 50%, this is where the Charge 4, it kind of depends on the track, will be at around 55% or 60% volume. And like the flip, since the speakers are forward facing, you get a little bit more of a direct sound. The StormBox does have a little bit of an overall brighter sound with more bass in that upper low end, where the Charge 4 does have bass that hits a little bit deeper and there is a little bit less in the kind of upper low end. Now with the Charge at 100%, this is about equivalent to the StormBox at 85% volume. So just a little bit louder than the flip, but the same things carry over. You get a more direct sound. The bass hits a little bit deeper on the Charge. And overall, I do like the Charge a little bit better at these volumes. And of course, if you want to chuck the StormBox to 100%, it's quite a lot louder than the Charge 4 here, but I'm going to chuck up all my indoor tests here so you can hear for yourself. Now with the outdoor test, very similar things carry over, more direct sound on the Charge 4. But this is where I noticed the deep bass didn't really show, or you can't really hear it as much on the Charge 4. The actual bass comes across as if there's a little bit more on the StormBox, mainly due to that bass sitting in those kind of high frequencies there. But again, I'll just chuck up some tests here so you can hear. So overall, comparing the two there, the Charge 4 still might be the go for you if you are into that deeper sound. The bass hits deeper, especially indoors. There is more of it. It's not as loud, but this does work a little bit better with electronic music, hardstyle, psytrance, rock and metal and that kind of stuff. And you can of course use the Charge 4 as a power bank. But if it's a bit of a brighter sound you like, then maybe go for the StormBox Pro. Then of course it goes a lot louder, more compact, has newer Bluetooth chips, has aptX. So yeah, I'll kind of let you decide on that one there. Now compared to the 60 watt Tronsmart Mega Pro, this is definitely even more chunkier than the Charge 4. It does come in a little bit cheaper than the StormBox, but overall the StormBox does win in the features department. But when it comes to sound, this is quite interesting here because the size of the Mega Pro, it's pretty chunky, but with the StormBox at 50%, this is equivalent to the Mega Pro at about 75% volume. And at this volume, since the DSP is not the best on the Mega Pro, the StormBox actually sounds better. It's a bit more direct, there's a bit more clarity, and there's actually a bit more bass as well, even though the Mega Pro is way bigger. But when you chuck that Mega Pro to 100%, it does sound better, but this is equivalent to the StormBox at like 75-80% volume. So the Mega Pro, despite its watts and size, does not really go that loud, but overall sound quality is better when you rock it at 100%. You get way more bass, it's a little bit more crisp, there's some more clarity there, but look, the speaker's like almost twice the size. And this is the same with the outdoor test, so I'll chuck up all the test results here so you can hear. So honestly, for its size, the Mega Pro should be performing a little bit better. The main reason you'd want to get that is if you do want to crank it only at louder volumes. When it's at those lower volumes, the bass is lacking, the DSP isn't working too well. So I'd recommend the StormBox Pro over the Mega Pro. A lot of pros. Now into the final test, and look, a pretty unfair one because the JBL Xtreme 2 is like over double the price. The Xtreme 3 would probably be like 3 times the price, and they would honestly both sound pretty similar, but only have the Xtreme 2 to test. But when it comes to volume, somehow the StormBox manages to keep up with the Xtreme 2. And when the StormBox is at 50%, this is equivalent to the Xtreme 2 at about 55-60%. And sure, you're obviously going to get more bass that hits a lot deeper on the Xtreme 2. But in terms of overall clarity, it's actually quite close. The StormBox might even come across with a bit more clarity there at those volumes. But the Xtreme 2 is obviously a speaker that works best when it's at those louder volumes. And of course, at 100%, it's going to sound better, just a lot more wattage. The speakers are bigger, there's a lot more bass. But when it comes to just overall volume and filling up a room or a space with sound, the StormBox manages to pretty much stay just on par with the Xtreme 2. I'm not sure if it'll come across in the recordings, but look, I'll just chuck up some quick tests so you can hear for yourself. All right, so that volume on the StormBox, I feel like that's a pretty cheeky selling point, because I find, like, you know, sometimes you just want to, you're going somewhere, you go to the beach or whatever, or you're like at an event with a lot of people around, you just want to bring a small speaker, but you might want to crank some bangers, you want to jam out, you're getting a little bit loose with your friends. I feel like it's kind of handy just to have a speaker that you can chuck somewhere and you can kind of just crank out a lot of volume in such a small form factor. And look, it's not just the loud volume, it still sounds really decent at most volume ranges, and the amount of features you're getting, like multi-point connection, your IP67, really solid battery life, the cheeky carrying handle, and for the price you're paying here, this definitely makes it one of the best value portable speakers out there right now. All right, thanks for tuning in. I'll chuck up another couple random speaker reviews here, but in the meantime, stay tuned, and of course, stay picky with your audio, because life's too short for crappy sound. See you in the next video. Bye now.